House Speaker vote live updates. GOP to meet. Chamber still paralyzed with no leader. Washington, after House Republicans twice rejected Representative Jim Jordan for Speaker this week, he pressed his case ahead of a third vote Friday morning. Jordan, a conservative firebrand, staunch Donald Trump loyalist, House Judiciary Committee chair and founding member of the House Freedom Caucus, received his party's nomination last week after House Majority Leader Steve Scalise bowed out of the race. The Ohio congressman faces an uphill battle to secure the 217 votes he needs to win the gavel. Here's how the news is developing. All times Eastern, October 23, 5:11 p.m. EDT. House Speaker candidates have voted on issues such as 2020 election, Ukraine aid, same-sex marriage. There are 9 candidates for Speaker. Here's how they have voted in the past on key issues. 9 Republicans are officially running for Speaker after almost 3 weeks of chaos without a leader in the House. Now the candidates for Speaker include Reps. Jack Bergman of Michigan, Byron Donalds of Florida, Tom Emmer of Minnesota, Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, Dan Muser of Pennsylvania, Gary Palmer of Alabama, Austin Scott of Georgia and Pete Sessions of Texas. House Republicans will hear from each candidate in a closed-door forum on Monday night. Read more about each candidate here. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than October 23, 4:58 p.m. EDT. Trump has spoken with several Speaker candidates, including Emmer. Former President Donald Trump has spoken to several of the candidates for Speaker of the House, including Reps. Tom Emmer, Kevin Hern, Pete Sessions and Byron Donalds, multiple sources tell ABC News. While Trump insisted he has always gotten along with Emmer, sources say the former president has privately told allies he does not support him. Trump has not endorsed Emmer for the top job in the House. Emmer is one of 2 Republicans running for Speaker who voted to certify the 2020 election results. Trump allies, including Steve Bannon, have called on Republicans to take out Emmer. So does Trump's endorsement have any weight behind it? He supported Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy was ousted. He supported Jim Jordan. Jordan couldn't get enough support. That's not a great track record so far. But in a bitterly divided conference, it doesn't help to have prominent right-wing figures attacking you with the former president's blessing either. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer has officially announced his bid for Speaker. "I'm running for Speaker of the House to bring our conference together and get back to work," Emmer said on X. Emmer, the number 3 Republican, sent a Dear Colleague letter saying that the GOP conference remains at a crossroads, and the deck is stacked against us. "Having had the privilege of getting to know all of you as your NRCC chair and as your majority whip, I know we are still ready for that fight," Emmer said about keeping the House majority. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy has already endorsed Emmer for the top job. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Emmer may appear to be the frontrunner, but he has opposition from Trump world and the far right, who say he has opposed their candidates in previous elections. Oklahoma Representative Kevin Hern, whose name was previously floated for the job, told ABC News he will run for Speaker at the candidate forum. Hern has served since 2018 and is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative group in the House. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Armin, when leaving the conference meeting, told reporters it was too soon to say whether he would put his name forward. But 3 House Republicans have told ABC News that Emmer is making calls soliciting support for a bid. Several other Republicans have thrown their hats into the ring. Florida's Byron Donalds, one of 4 Black House Republicans. Texas's Pete Sessions, the longest tenured lawmaker to enter the race so far. Michigan's Jack Bergman is a retired lieutenant general who served decades in the Marine Corps. Louisiana's Mike Johnson, the House Republican Vice Conference Chair, and Georgia's Austin Scott, who sits seats on the Agriculture, Armed Services and the Intelligence Committees. Republicans are back to square one when it comes to finding a new Speaker. The House will have no further votes Friday or this weekend. Republicans plan to hold a candidate forum on Monday at 6:30 p.m. and a secret ballot vote on Tuesday morning with the hopes of bringing a candidate to the House floor on Tuesday afternoon. "The reason why I made that decision is we need space and time for candidates to talk to other members," said Representative Patrick McHenry, the temporary Speaker. "It's fair to say that Leader Scalise wasn't given adequate time to campaign. He was given 24 hours to campaign. I don't think that was right for him. Our nominee Jordan was given a little more time. Not right for him." Jim Jordan, in brief remarks, said it's time for House Republicans to find consensus and that whoever becomes their next Speaker pick will have his support. "We need to come together and figure out who our Speaker is going to be," Jordan said. I'm going to work as hard as I can to help that individual so that we can go help the American people. Jordan looked forward to returning to his role as chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, telling reporters he has several depositions lined up next week. It's important we do unite. Let's figure out who that individual is, get behind him and get to work for the American people, Jordan concluded. October 20th. 2:29 p.m. EDT. McCarthy. Republicans going back to the drawing board. Unfortunately, Jim is no longer going to be the nominee, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy said as he was leaving the conference. We will have to go back to the drawing board. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. McCarthy blamed the Crazy Eights, who led his ouster, for the chaos they've wreaked on the Republican Party and the country. I've never seen this amount of damage done. It's astonishing to me, he said. We are in a very bad position as a party, one that has won the majority, one that America has entrusted us with, McCarthy continued. 8 people have put us in this place. McCarthy didn't endorse a new nominee or say whether he would re-enter the race. Jordan lost a secret ballot vote to remain the Republican nominee for Speaker. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. The conference voted to drop him during a closed-door meeting after he lost a third ballot on the House floor. The secret ballot vote was 86-112. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, leaving the meeting, said they will be starting over on Monday. ABC's Rachel Scott, John Parkinson, Lauren Peller, Ben Siegel, Jay O'Brien and Maryam Khan. October 20, 1:58 p.m. EDT. Republicans, in secret ballot, to decide if Jordan should stay in the race. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. House Republicans are now taking a secret ballot vote on whether Jordan should remain their candidate for Speaker. The goal, for Jordan's camp, is a reset, with the House GOP and the supporters of Steve Scalise who are frustrated that the Louisiana Republican won the conference vote but didn't get to take his nomination to the floor. Jordan would need a majority in the secret ballot vote to reaffirm his standing. But even if he prevails, it's unlikely to lead to any softened opposition from his critics. Republicans are voting for or against Jordan, or present. There is no option to vote for other candidates. If he loses, it's possible he would step aside and allow others to make a play for the Speaker's gavel. If he wins, he could try to take his nomination to the House floor once again. ABC's Benjamin Siegel. OCT 20, 1:02 p.m. EDT. Republicans to huddle behind closed doors as House remains paralyzed. Republicans plan to gather yet again behind closed doors Friday afternoon for a conference meeting on how to proceed with the Speaker debate. The meeting is scheduled to start at 1 p.m. It's been 17 days since the House had a Speaker, leaving lawmakers unable to act amid the Israel-Hamas conflict and a looming deadline to fund the government or face a shutdown. October 20, 12:14 p.m. EDT. House in recess. Next steps unclear. Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry has gavelled the House into recess. A Speaker has not been elected. McHenry announced at 12:06 p.m. whether there will be a fourth vote today remains unclear. Republicans are expected to hold a conference meeting early Friday afternoon to discuss the path forward. Jordan was again rejected, this time with 25 Republicans voting against his candidacy. The Ohio Republican received 194 votes, his lowest total yet. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries received 210 votes, 2 fewer than in previous rounds due to Democratic absences. Support for GOP Representative Patrick McHenry, the interim Speaker, began to emerge on this ballot. 6 Republicans voted this round for the North Carolina Republican. The Speaker's chair remains empty more than 2 weeks since the historic removal of Kevin McCarthy. October 20, 11:46 a.m. EDT. Jordan loses even more GOP support than in 2 previous votes. Republican opposition to Jordan has grown, with at least 24 GOP members rejecting his third attempt to be Speaker. The results come after Jordan tried to pressure GOP holdouts, both publicly and privately, to change their minds. Jordan had 20 Republican defectors in the first round and 22 in the second. The third vote is ongoing. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. Jordan can only afford to lose 5 Republican votes. Already, 7 Republicans have cast their ballot for someone else. Jordan earlier Friday hinted the House could continue voting through the weekend for Speaker. The chamber is paralyzed without one, unable to respond to the crisis in Israel or consider the foreign aid package being requested by President Joe Biden. October 20, 11:14 a.m. EDT. Clark says GOP engaged in civil war rather than governing. House Democratic Whip Catherine Clark nominated Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than. In her speech, she told Republicans it's not too late to work with Democrats on a bipartisan path forward as she criticized Jordan's record. She also referenced the threats some Republicans have received as they oppose Jordan's bid. Every day, the majority chooses to engage in a Republican civil war that is threatening their own members instead of engaging with us in the work of the American people is a day that weakens this institution and the standing of our county, Clark said. We need a speaker who will govern with consensus, not conflict. October 20, 10:59 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than McCarthy nominates Jordan, who needs 214 votes. A quorum call established. 427 members are present for today's vote. That means Jordan will need 214 votes to win the speakership. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy stood to nominate Jordan, calling him an effective legislator amid scrutiny of his record. The comment prompted audible laughter from Democrats. McCarthy fired back on Democrats, calling them ineffective on border security and other issues. He singled out California Representative Pete Aguilar, who has repeatedly nominated House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the truth is, if we measure lawmakers by how many bills have their name on it, we're using the wrong measuring stick, he said. He then said that members who have their names on the bill the most frequently are the most selfish House minority. Leader Hakeem Jeffries, DNY, criticized Jordan ahead of a third vote, calling him the poster child for MAGA extremism. We recognize that Jim Jordan is a clear and present danger to the American people, and we are going to be here for as long as it takes to end this national nightmare, he said. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Jeffries called on traditional Republicans to link up with Democrats to find a bipartisan path forward. But when asked by ABC News' Jay O'Brien if there are any moderate GOP members who'd be willing to work with Democrats on finding an alternative candidate, Jeffries said that question should be posed to them. He also again signaled Democratic support for Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry to have temporary power despite Republican opposition. I've said repeatedly that there are many Republicans on the other side of the aisle who we believe are good Americans, good patriots, good men and women. Patrick McHenry is one of them. There are others, Jeffries said. Ohio Republican Jim Jordan is pushing ahead in his bid for Speaker, telling reporters that he believes House Republicans must elect one to get on with the American people's business as he signals additional rounds of votes could continue through the weekend. There's been multiple rounds of votes for Speaker before we all know that, Jordan said, alluding to the 15 rounds of votes last January to elect Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. I just know that we need to get a Speaker as soon as possible so we can get to work for the American people. Our plan this weekend is to get the Speaker elected to the House of Representatives as soon as possible so we can help the American people, Jordan later added. Jordan said he hopes that the Republicans will elect him today, so that lawmakers can get the House open as soon as possible. People I think are starting to doubt and wonder about their government and about where our nation is headed, Jordan said following two failed votes earlier this week, and Thursday he did not even attempt a vote. I think the American people are thirsty for change. I think they are hungry for leadership. We got important work to do, Jordan said, ticking through a list of projects he would like to address as Speaker. In short, we need to get to work for the American people. We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we're going to do when they elected us and put us at office, and frankly we can't do that if the House isn't open. The House will vote Friday at 10 a.m. on a third Speaker ballot, according to Jordan's spokesman. October 19, 5:03 p.m. EDT. Jordan, leaving meeting, says there will be a third vote after all. Leaving the closed-door meeting with Republicans, Jordan said that the House will vote again on his Speaker bid for a third time. When asked about timing, he said he wanted to talk to the holdouts who are opposing him before moving forward. October 19, 2:55 p.m. EDT. Jordan, leaving meeting, says there will be a third vote after all. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Leaving the closed-door meeting with Republicans, Jordan said that the House will vote again on his Speaker bid for a third time. When asked about timing, he said he wanted to talk to the holdouts who are opposing him before moving forward. October 19, 2:52 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. McCarthy shouted at Matt Gaetz in GOP meeting. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy shouted at Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida as the party met behind closed doors. Gaetz led the charge against McCarthy, successfully rallying a small group of Republican hardliners to remove him. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. The whole country is screaming at Matt Gaetz, McCarthy said. October 19, 2:27 p.m. EDT plan to temporarily empower McHenry appears to be non-starter after more than 3 hours behind closed doors. House Republicans don't seem to have a plan on how to move forward with the speakership. The meeting is still ongoing, but several Republicans emerged in the last few minutes to tell reporters that the proposal to temporarily empower Patrick McHenry is now a non-starter, lacking the support of a majority of Republicans. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. The best thing for Republicans to do is to elect a speaker, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy told reporters. Absent a plan to empower McHenry, Republicans said Jordan told members he will re-evaluate his campaign for Speaker after talking to some of his critics. Several Republicans spoke up in the meeting and said Jordan should suspend his campaign given the lack of support. ABC's Benjamin Siegel OCT 19, 12:21 p.m. EDT. Some House conservatives slam proposal to empower temporary Speaker and delay vote on Jordan. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. As Republicans continue to debate how best to move forward given Jordan's impasse, some of his top allies are bashing the idea of elevating Patrick McHenry with Democratic support until January to get the House through funding Israel, Ukraine aid and avoiding a shutdown. This is the wrong thing to do. Our voters worked very hard to give us the majority, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, RGA, said. Rep. Matt Gaetz, R. Florida, shared his opposition. I'm against Speaker Light, Gaetz said. It's constitutional desecration. Rep. Jim Banks, R. Ind, told ABC senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott he doesn't back the plan and predicted that more than half the GOP would oppose it. Even if the pragmatic Republicans supporting Jordan support the plan, it will need Democratic votes. The exact number could be fluid. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Rep. Hakeem Jeffries, DNY, has said Republicans must take up government funding in Israel, Ukraine aid. His third demand, allowing bipartisan bills to the floor, could be a non-starter for many Republicans depending on how it's construed. McHenry kept his cards close entering the meeting about whether he supports the plan. I never asked for additional powers, he said. He is expected to gavel the House into session shortly and then recess as both parties continue their private meetings. October 19, 11:56 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. What Jordan not holding third vote could mean for speakership quest. If Jordan doesn't hold a third vote in his speakership bid, and instead backs additional powers for temporary Speaker McHenry, it may not mean Jordan is out of the race. The move will allow Jordan to hold onto the designee title and potentially keep pursuing votes from his fellow members, but in the meantime give the House a chance to move forward with important duties such as avoiding an impending government shutdown and aid to countries at war. On his way to the Thursday morning meeting with his colleagues, Jordan wouldn't directly say what he planned to do but pledged to offer an update after he heard from fellow members. I'm not gonna get into any details. I think it's important to speak to our colleagues first. And then once conference is over, I'll be happy to come out and stand there and not make you walk backwards and talk to you then, he said. But right now, I'm gonna go talk to my colleagues. Jordan had also previously said he was hoping to bring the conference together, and acknowledged they were looking at all kinds of options, including expanding the powers of McHenry and allowing the House to get back to business without an elected GOP speaker. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. ABC's Catherine Faulders and Rachel Scott. October 19, 11:57 a.m. EDT. Jordan expected to announce he will not hold third vote for speakership after 2 failed votes so far. Jordan is expected to soon tell his GOP colleagues that he won't hold a third vote for the role of Speaker and instead will throw his weight behind expanding powers for the Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry, according to 2 sources familiar with the decision. ABC's Catherine Faulders and Rachel Scott. October 19, 10:17 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Republicans expected to meet Thursday morning ahead of possible vote. House Republicans are expected to meet behind closed doors in the Capitol basement at 11 a.m. Thursday to discuss the Speaker race situation ahead of a possible floor vote later in the day. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. A vote could take place on the floor as early at noon, but the exact timing and details of the vote haven't been set. October 18, 7:32 p.m. EDT. Republicans say they were threatened after not voting for Jordan. Nearly half a dozen GOP members who have voted against Jordan said their offices were threatened or harassed, including, in the case of one lawmaker, with credible death threats. No American should accost another for their beliefs. We condemn all threats against our colleagues, and it is imperative that we come together. Stop. It's abhorrent, Jordan said in a statement on X. Rep. Carlos Jimenez of Florida told ABC News that his office and staff have been receiving calls to try to pressure him to back Jordan. Jordan, told me he wasn't behind it and he has asked people to stop. If you have asked people to stop it, why haven't they listened to you? Jimenez said. October 18, 7:56 p.m. EDT. McHenry says he'll give Jordan, as long as he needs to clinch speakership. Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry, RNC, said he plans on giving Jordan, as long as he needs, to garner the support necessary to clinch the speakership. Look, Speaker designee Jordan is working with the conference to get his votes. It's a tight time frame. But look, he has the most votes in the conference. We've had 2 ballots and I think he has the support of the conference. I think we are going to keep working, McHenry told reporters. McHenry added that House Republicans didn't have plans to hold a conference meeting Wednesday evening after Jordan failed to win the gavel for the second time in 2 days. October 18, 4:53 p.m. EDT. Next House votes happening Thursday afternoon. Majority Whip Tom Emmer's office said the House will not take any further votes Wednesday. The next votes are expected Thursday no earlier than 12 p.m., Emmer said. That means the soonest the next speaker vote could happen would be Thursday afternoon. October 18, 4:16 p.m. EDT. House will not vote again for speaker on Wednesday. Next vote possible Thursday. The House is not expected to take another vote for speaker on Wednesday, sources tell ABC News. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Jordan told reporters that another vote for speaker could come Thursday. Sources tell ABC News that Jordan has also pushed for a vote on a resolution empowering Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry, but it's unclear if the GOP leadership team will agree to put that on the floor while Jordan is still an active candidate for Speaker, and while other Republicans may be waiting in the wings to make a play for the gavel if he exits the race. More than 2 hours have passed and there's little progress to report with the House still in recess. Still, there was a moment of levity with tourists amid the tense and chaotic speakership battle. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Rep. Andy Barr, RKY, just popped into the chamber and noticed about 20 visitors seated patiently in the gallery and shouted, "We're looking for a speaker. Any of you want to sign up?" The crowd laughed and someone shouted a question, asking him whether lawmakers are coming back for another round of votes for speaker. He said he thought that was the plan and then walked over to the back of the chamber to chat with the visitors. "Where are you from?" Barr asks, to which several visitors responded they were from South Carolina, Pittsburgh and Virginia. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than Barr, who was the only member in the chamber during this interaction, mingled for a few minutes before excusing himself. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Sorry we can't show you any more right now." October 18, 3:28 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Breaking down Jordan's performance. GOP defectors. Jordan received 1 fewer vote in the second round than he did on Tuesday, receiving 199 votes. Jordan picked up 3 members, but lost 4 others. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. 7 Republicans voted for House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who initially won the party's nomination for Speaker but bowed out of the race last week. They were Reps. Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida, Drew Ferguson of Georgia, Tony Gonzalez of Texas, Kay Granger of Texas, John Rutherford of Florida, Mike Simpson of Idaho and Steve Womack of Arkansas. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. 5 voted for McCarthy. Reps. Don Bacon of Nebraska, Lori Chavez Derrimer of Oregon, Carlos Jimenez of Florida, Jennifer Kiggins of Virginia and Mike Lawler of New York. Other Republicans who voted for someone else include Reps. Vern Buchanan of Florida, Ken Buck of Ohio, Jake Ellzey of Kansas, Mary Miller Meeks of Iowa, John James of Michigan, Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania and Pete Stauber of Minnesota. October 18, 3:21 p.m. EDT. Centrists. Institutionalists block Jordan's path. The 22 Republicans who voted against Jordan make up a group of centrists and institutionalists who show no signs of budging anytime soon. The group of detractors cited an array of reasons for voting against Jordan, including refusing to reward the lawmakers who voted to oust McCarthy, bristling against the pressure campaign from Jordan's allies and rising worries over Jordan's ideological rigidity, including his support for efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. "It made us mad, and it backfires," Representative Don Bacon, RNEB, said Wednesday on Newsmax of the pressure campaign. "Some of the younger folks, maybe that works. But someone like me, you win us over with an argument that makes sense. You're going to have to convince us. And threatening us does not work." October 18, 1:39 p.m. EDT. Jordan suffers second defeat. Jordan has officially lost a second vote in his bid for Speaker. The Ohio Republican received 199 votes. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries received 212 votes. 22 Republicans cast their ballot for someone else. Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry gavelled the House into recess. Republicans will most likely go into a closed-door conference meeting, which is expected to include discussions about a potential short-term solution, among other things. A conference meeting hasn't officially been noticed to Republicans yet, but sources said that's the next expected step after the vote closes. Jordan is facing even more opposition in this second round, with 22 Republicans so far casting their ballot for someone else. The vote is ongoing, but already 10 Republicans have voted against Jordan, with that number expected to rise. Each member is being called on alphabetically to voice who they want to see succeed McCarthy. Jordan can only afford to lose 4 House Republicans before a fifth upsets his bid. October 18, 12:51 p.m. EDT. Rep. Tom Cole nominates Jordan for Speaker. Oklahoma Representative Tom Cole stood to nominate Jordan for the second ballot vote, saying he has what it takes to be Speaker. He doesn't dissemble. He simply tells you straight up, this is what I believe, this is why I think it's the right thing to do for this country, and that's why I'm going to try to accomplish and work with you any way I can to do it, Cole said. Cole commended Jordan's work on committees and his stances on spending, immigration and more. Cole also invoked the terror attacks in Israel, stating Israel is within its right to punish Hamas, which received a standing ovation from Republicans and Democrats. In a moment of crisis, and we are in a moment of crisis, we should come together to act, Cole said. And we know we can't do that without a Speaker of the House. Democrats once again nominated Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. October 18, 11:44 a.m. EDT. Jordan. We got to decide today, on path forward. Jordan told reporters the American people deserve to have an answer today on what lies ahead. Look, I think we got to decide today. Are we going to have a Republican Speaker? Or is the body going to adopt this resolution with the Speaker pro tempore? Jordan said, referencing an effort to empower Representative Patrick McHenry to conduct House business. I think both questions should be called, Jordan said. Let's get an answer. We've been at this 2 weeks. The American people deserve to have their government functioning. October 18, 11:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Republicans poised to reject Jordan on second ballot. Jordan is poised to lose Wednesday on a second ballot on the election of a Speaker, but the Ohio Republican is showing no signs of giving up, while Jordan has continued to attempt to sway holdout Republicans. Only Representative Doug LaMalfa of California has announced a change of heart following the first ballot. LaMalfa had initially voted for his fellow Californian, McCarthy, and now says he'll support Jordan instead of the former Speaker on the second ballot. But the 19 other Republicans who bucked Jordan in the first round have not publicly shifted their stance yet, and Jordan is actually expected to lose additional lawmakers on the second ballot. October 18, 10:19 a.m. EDT. Jordan could lose more Republicans on second ballot. A few Republican holdouts are reluctant to even take another meeting with Jordan or return his phone calls ahead of the second ballot set for Wednesday morning, sources tell ABC News. By forcing another vote, Jordan runs the risk of losing even more Republicans on the second ballot. It's unclear just how many gave him assurances that they'd only support him on the first round. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries told reporters that talks between Democrats and Republicans have accelerated on an alternative plan to get the House back to business. Sources say Jeffries floated the idea of elevating a temporary Speaker for a limited time so the House can do its work, a signal that a growing number of Democrats could support this plan. Most Republicans expect the opposition against Jordan to grow Wednesday, October 18, 9:42 a.m. EDT. If Jordan's can't win, one Republican wants to empower Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Rep. Dave Joyce, R. Ohio, one of the few remaining moderates in the GOP majority, could bring up a motion to empower temporary Speaker Patrick McHenry if Jordan can't lock down the votes for Speaker on the second ballot Wednesday morning. After 2 weeks without a Speaker of the House and no clear candidate with 217 votes in the Republican conference, it is time to look at other viable options. By empowering Patrick McHenry as Speaker pro tempore, we can take care of our ally Israel until a new Speaker is elected, Joyce said in a statement. By officially empowering McHenry, Republicans could give themselves a temporary off-ramp to approve emergency aid to Israel and to fund the government to avert a shutdown next month. It's not clear how long Joyce is proposing to empower McHenry, or if Republicans will allow Joyce to do so, instead of letting others run for Speaker if Jordan falls short. It's likely Democrats would need to back the proposal on the House floor, too. McHenry and his team have suggested he isn't interested in the role. October 17, 5:21 p.m. EDT. Next Speaker vote expected Wednesday morning. The next Speaker vote will be at 11 a.m. Wednesday, Jordan said after he left a 2-hour meeting in Whip Emmer's office. He reiterated that he is not going to drop out of the Speaker battle and emphasized that he had basically the same level of support as McCarthy on his first vote in January. Jordan said he expects to gain support in a Wednesday morning vote, mentioning Florida Representative Gus Bilirakis, who missed today's vote because of a family funeral. He didn't address potential future defectors. October 17, 4:52 p.m. EDT. What Republicans are saying about Jordan's first-round loss. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Emerging from the floor after Jordan's failed first vote, some Republicans expressed open frustration while others remained optimistic. We gotta wake up and stop this nonsense. There's real serious work to be done, Pennsylvania Representative Dan Muser said. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Muser had direct and strong conversations with GOP colleagues after the vote to try to swing them, he said. We've got to understand, we've got to operate as a team, because if we don't, we will lose everything. But he has to contend with members such as Colorado's Ken Buck, who is staunchly anti-Jordan because of concerns he won't support Ukraine funding and because of his role in protesting the 2020 election results. I am not going to vote for Jim. I just think there's too much there at this point, Buck told ABC News. Buck said he feels so strongly, because I just don't think that we can win the presidential election if we have candidates and leaders in our party who won't admit that Donald Trump lost, who won't admit that the Republican Party wants to move forward. Of course, Republicans such as Muser and others argued that not voting in a speaker will also threaten GOP victories in the next election. I think it absolutely casts a bad cloud over the institution and Republicans, New York Representative Nicole Maliotakis told ABC News. Still others, however, were more optimistic, comparing this process to McCarthy's and using it to argue that Jordan is on track for success. Do you believe that at the end of the day, it's going to be Speaker Jordan? ABC News senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott asked Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett. Jordan met with Scalise behind closed doors on Tuesday and asked for help to get the needed votes, a source told ABC News senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott. The source says Scalise wouldn't commit to helping Jordan. Scalise was the conference's first choice for Speaker in an internal contest last week, as he defeated Jordan 113-99. But he dropped out days later, amid opposition from holdouts who were backing Jordan. Of the 20 Republicans who voted against Jordan in the first round, 7 voted for Scalise. Scalise cast his vote for Jordan. October 17, 3:57 p.m. EDT. Jeffries urges GOP to join Dems in finding a bipartisan path forward. ABC News asked House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries if he sees Republicans forging a way out of the speakership impasse today. It's not a complicated situation, Jeffries responded. We just need traditional Republicans to break from the extremists and join us in finding a bipartisan path forward. We've said it over and over and over again. We are ready, willing and able to get together and reopen the House. October 17, 3:27 p.m. EDT. Jordan tells ABC more members will vote for him on second ballot. ABC News caught Jordan moments after he left the House chamber. He made it clear that he's staying in the race for Speaker, insisting there will be another vote tonight. We thought we were doing well, that we were in that area or a little more maybe, but we feel confident. We already talked to some members who are going to vote with us on the second ballot, Jordan said as he rushed into an office. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. ABC's Rachel Scott, Lauren Peller, Arthur Jones and John Parkinson. October 17, 2:49 p.m. Ed Jordan's team says expect another round of votes today. The House needs a speaker as soon as possible, Russell Dye, a spokesperson for Jordan, said in a statement. Expect another round of votes today. It's time for Republicans to come together. The timing of a second vote, however, remains unclear. ABC's Catherine Falders. October 17, 2:26 p.m. EDT. McCarthy says Jordan shouldn't drop out, confident he'll get the votes. McCarthy, the former speaker, attempted to equate Jordan's loss to exactly what happened to him. Jordan had just as many votes as I had on the first one. I think the difference here is we have rules so we can sit down, talk to the other members and be able to move forward, McCarthy said. McCarthy lost 19 Republicans on the first ballot, while Jordan lost 20. When asked if Jordan should drop out, McCarthy exclaimed, "No. No. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than, I saw the exact same vote that I got when I ran and I became Speaker," McCarthy said. McCarthy said he'll talk to Jordan and help in any way he can. When asked if he thinks Jordan will ultimately get the votes, McCarthy said, "Yes, Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry, after reading aloud the results of the first ballot, gavelled the chamber into recess. A speaker has not been elected," McHenry said. "There will not be an immediate second vote. Lawmakers are now expected to huddle behind closed doors in conference. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than October 17, 2:10 p.m. EDT. The 20 Republicans who voted against Jordan. 20 House Republicans cast their ballot for someone other than Jordan. 7 voted for Scalise. Reps. Tony Gonzalez of Texas, Kay Granger of Texas, Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida, Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, John Rutherford of Florida, Reps. Mike Simpson of Idaho and Steve Womack of Arkansas. 6 voted McCarthy. Reps. Lori Chavez Derrimer of Oregon, Don Bacon of Nebraska, Carlos Jimenez of Florida, Jennifer Kiggins of Virginia, Mike Lawler of New York and Doug LaMalfa of California. 3 voted for former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin. Reps. Anthony Despositio, Andrew Garbarino and Nick LaLota, all members of the New York delegation. Kansas Representative Jake Ellzey voted for Mike Garcia of California. Colorado's Ken Buck voted for House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Michigan Representative John James voted for Oklahoma Representative Tom Cole, and Indiana Representative Victoria Spartz voted for Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky. October 17, 1:56 p.m. EDT. Jordan loses first round of voting. Jordan lost his first bid for the speakership. He received 200 votes, but needed at least 217 to clinch the gavel. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, nominated by Democrats, received 212 votes. 20 lawmakers voted for someone else. October 17, 1:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than McCarthy, ousted exactly 2 weeks ago. Votes for Jordan. McCarthy, toppled by a small group of GOP hardliners on October 3, voted for Jordan to be his successor. The moment was met with applause from the Republican side of the chamber. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than, but Jordan is still on track to lose on the first ballot, with 15 Republicans casting a vote for someone else. October 17, 1:14 p.m. EDT. Jordan already falls short of vote needed. The vote is ongoing, but Jordan does not appear to have the support needed to win on the first ballot. At least 5 Republicans have voted for someone else. 2 lawmakers, Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska and Representative Lori Chavez Derrimer of Oregon, voted for McCarthy. Anthony Desposito voted for former Representative Lee Zeldin. Representative Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida voted for Steve Scalise. Representative Jake Ellzey voted for fellow Republican Representative Mike Garcia. October 17, 1:02 p.m. EDT. The math behind the speaker vote. There are 432 members in attendance for the upcoming vote to elect a speaker, according to the quorum call. That means that 217 is the majority threshold needed to win the gavel, presuming every member in attendance votes for someone by name. Rep. Pete Aguilar, D. Califf, nominated House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Aguilar focused much of his remarks on Jordan's record, noting that one of Jordan's own colleagues once described him as a legislative terrorist. When New Yorkers were recovering from Hurricane Sandy and needed Congress to act, he said, "No," Aguilar said. When wildfires ravaged the West, destroying homes and businesses, and those residents needed disaster assistance, he said, "No." When the Mississippi River floods devastated the South and communities across state lines and needed Congress to act, he said, "No." When our veterans were suffering from disease and dying as a result of their service to our country and Congress passed a bipartisan solution, he said, "No." Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Democrats seated behind Aguilar responded to each example with the chant, "He said no." This body is talking about elevating a speaker nominee who has not passed a single bill in 16 years, Aguilar said. These are not the actions of someone interested in governing or bettering the lives of everyday Americans. October 17, 12:49 p.m. EDT. Stefanik nominates Jordan for Speaker. Rep. Elise Stefanik, RNY, rose to nominate Jordan for Speaker. She received rounding applause from Republicans in the chamber. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. We are at a time of great crisis across America, Stefanik said. A time of historic challenges in this very chamber. And a time when heinous acts of terror and evil have been committed against our great ally, Israel. Stefanik went on to praise Jordan as a patriot and a winner. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than, he's an America First warrior who wins the toughest of fights, she said. Going after corruption and delivering accountability at the highest levels of government, on behalf of we the people. Jim is the voice of the American people who have felt voiceless for far too long. October 17, 12:22 p.m. EVT quorum call is underway. Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry opened the chamber at 12:03 p.m., quickly moving the lower chamber into a prayer led by Margaret Grun-Kibben, following the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. The House began a quorum call to establish the members who are present and voting. October 17, 12:14 p.m. EDT Jordan ignores questions on 2020 election. Jordan's actions leading up to the January 6, 2021, Capitol attack have been under scrutiny. In his run for Speaker, Colorado Representative Ken Buck, one Republican holdout, has pointed to Jordan's past comments about the 2020 election and January 6. Buck told ABC News on Monday, "I think Jim at some point, if he is going to lead this conference, is going to have to be strong and say, Donald Trump didn't win the election, and we need to move forward. Hopefully, for Republicans, we get a Republican candidate in the White House." ABC News pushed Jordan on that point ahead of the vote. "I have been very clear about that," he responded. "There were states that unconstitutionally changed our election law, and that's what I objected to, as did the vast majority of Republican members of Congress." Asked if he would acknowledge that Trump lost the 2020 election, Jordan appeared to hear the question but did not respond and got onto the elevator. 2 hours later, another reporter asked the same question and Jordan ignored it. October 17, 12:04 p.m. EDT Jordan projects confidence. Jordan spent the final hours meeting with GOP holdouts and working the phones ahead of the noon vote. There are still at least 10 holdouts and several members who have not said publicly how they will vote. "We are going to find out here pretty soon," Jordan told ABC News senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott when asked if he has enough support to get elected. October 17, 12:01 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than House chamber filling up ahead of vote minutes before the House opens for business. The gallery of the House chamber is filling up with more than 200 tourists and other visitors to the Capitol as journalists begin to settle into the press galleries and lawmakers arrive on the floor. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Among the first members on the floor is Republican Representative Frank Lucas of Oklahoma, who is using a walker as he recovers from a major operation after sustaining a hip injury farming. Lucas took a seat in the back near the aisle, chatting briefly with Republican Representative Randy Weber of Texas. Louisiana Republican Mike Johnson, who is rumored to be mulling his own bid for Speaker if Jordan fails, is seated at the GOP leadership table. He walked over to the center aisle to talk with Colorado Democrat Joe Neguse. Michigan Democrat Dan Kildee is seated behind the Democrat leadership table. Neguse is now seated there, chatting with his colleague. Representative Debbie Dingell of Michigan is also seated on the Democratic side, scrolling through her phone. Tennessee Republican Andy Ogles is the first of the Freedom Caucus members to stake their usual spot along the center aisle. October 17, 11:55 a.m. EDT timing of the first round Speaker vote. Here's the timing for what we expect for the first round of Speaker votes this afternoon. The clerk, Kevin McCumber, acting clerk, calls the House of Representatives to order at noon EST. Prayer led by Margaret Grun-Kibben, the first female chaplain of the House. Pledge of Allegiance led by the House clerk. Quorum call is ordered by the clerk. Members are called to vote electronically by state. At this point, we will hear the official number of lawmakers present and voting. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than. Election for Speaker with nominations made by selected lawmakers. Typically, one lawmaker from each party is nominated. In this case, Jordan is the Republican nominee and Jeffries is the Democratic nominee. House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik will nominate Jordan. House Democratic Caucus Chairman Pete Aguilar will nominate Jeffries. Debate on the nomination of candidates for Speaker is allowed but not customary. Tellers are appointed to count, viva voce, voice votes, usually 2 members from each side of the aisle. A viva voce vote is one spoken aloud. The usually 4 tellers take a seat at the dais and tally votes on paper. Roll is then called by the House reading clerk with members calling out the last name of their chosen Speaker. The clerk repeats the choice so everyone hears it. This could take up to 1 hour. The House clerk announces the results. appoints an escort committee to formally escort the new speaker-elect into the chamber. October 17, 10:57 a.m. EDT. Does Jordan have the votes? Currently the whole number of the House is 433, with 2 vacancies that won't be filled until later this year. Presuming all 433 members vote, Jordan would need 217 votes to be named Speaker, but a whip count from ABC News shows it's unlikely Jordan, who won the GOP nomination on Friday, has locked down the votes. He can only afford to lose 4 votes. As of right now, up to 10 Republicans have signaled that they plan to vote for someone other than Jordan on the first ballot. No Democrats are expected to support Jordan's nomination. A top aide to Jordan told ABC News that the congressman has been meeting with members and making calls this morning ahead of the vote. October 17, 10:54 a.m. EDT. What to expect? The House will convene at noon today to consider the nomination of Jordan for Speaker. First, a quorum call will be ordered by the clerk for members to establish the official number of lawmakers present and voting. Then, the election for Speaker will take place. Typically, 1 lawmaker from each party is nominated, Jordan for Republicans and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries for Democrats. Lawmakers will then have a period of debate before a roll call vote in which each member will be called upon to state who they support for Speaker. If the first round fails, they have to restart this process or the House might recess so members could meet behind closed doors in conference. October 17, 10:55 a.m. EDT. Who is Jim Jordan? The Ohio Republican won the GOP nomination for Speaker last week. A conservative firebrand and favorite of former President Donald Trump, Jordan was first elected to Congress in 2006 and in 2015, founded the House Freedom Caucus, a conservative group that supports hardline stances on government spending, healthcare, immigration and other issues. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than now. As the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jordan is one of the Republicans leading the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden and investigations into his son, Hunter.